Hey, today we're going to start section 1-2 of Math 096. And so what you'll need for when you're working on these sections on your own is, first of all, you'll need the guided notes. So if you look in the D2L class, every section will have guided notes. So that's what the guided notes for section 1-2 look like. And you'll be able to follow these guided notes and write on these notes as you go through the lectures. And then you should also have a copy of your textbook. So what you're going to want, you don't need the whole book in front of you, but you would want to have at least the section we're working on. Like we're working on section 1-2. So I would pull all of chapter 1 out if I was a student, just as we're working through chapter 1. So you'll need your guided notes, which as you follow the lecture, I'll go through these guided notes. And you'll need your book, because we're going to work through guided examples together, and then you're going to take a moment, you will stop the video and you'll take a moment to work on something on your own. All right, so in section 1-2, the objectives of section 1-2 are, first of all, we're going to learn how to use the number line so that we can order numbers, how to translate sentences into mathematical statements, and how to identify the sets of numbers like natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, rational, real numbers. We'll be able to know any number, which sets it falls in, or it's included in. And then we'll also practice finding the absolute value of a number. So just so we get used to these guided notes here, we're going to go through classroom example 1. And then you see right here, in parentheses, it's got P1. That means after we go through classroom example 1, together, you should stop the video and you should work on practice 1 on your own. When you're done with practice 1 and you can check your answers for all the practice problems, then start the video again, and then we'll continue as a class, you and I, for classroom example 2. So here we have the instructions to insert a less than, greater than, or equal to sign between each pair of numbers. So one construct that we use when we're talking about numbers is a number line. And when you draw a number line, you'll put arrows on both ends because the numbers will go off into infinity. There's no such thing as the biggest possible number, and it will also go into negative infinity. And usually a good number line will have the number 0 on it. So you can know where the positive numbers start and continue on. That would be +1, +2, +3. And then 0 is the separator between the positive and the negative numbers. So the further on down you go to the left on the number line, the smaller the numbers become. So your smaller numbers are to the left, and your larger numbers are to the right. So for this particular number line, and any number can be put on this number line somewhere. So let's look at the number 1/2. 1/2 would be right about there on our number line. It's greater than 0, but it's less than 1. It's in between 0 and 1. And then I also have, let's put on the number line, the -1. Since -1 is encountered first as you go up your number line, -1 is a smaller number than all the numbers to the right of it on the number line. Now, when you use your greater than, less than, and equal, of course, equals means they have the exact same value. That is a greater than sign. And this is a less than sign. What you want to remember is that the arrow of the greater than and the less than sign will always point to the smaller number. So considering these two numbers here, -1 and 1/2, there are two ways I could pretty much write this. Let's talk about less than first. If I have -1 and 1/2, -1 is smaller than or less than 1/2, so I'm going to have my arrow point to the -1, and we would read that as -1 is less than 1/2. But if I wanted to represent the same information but instead use the greater than sign, as we look at this number line, 1/2 is actually bigger than or greater than -1/2 because it's further on down to the right on the number line. So remember, the arrow always points to the smaller number. So we would write this as 1/2 is greater than -1. That's a true statement. -1 is less than 1/2. Also a true statement. So let's go back to our guided notes and let's go ahead and fill in the answers here. So we want to, our instructions say to insert a less than, a greater than, or an equal to sign. All right, so 9 is a smaller number than 20, so we're going to put in the less than sign. Arrow always pointing to the smaller number. Now, 100 is a bigger number than 99. The arrow always points to the smaller number, so we would fill that in as 100 is greater than 99. So that's classroom example 1. Now, you're going to stop the video and you're going to work on practice 1. Let's take a moment and look at your book here. We've just done a classroom example that looks a lot like this problem. It's not exact. This is a copy of your book. It's not exact, but it's like this problem. If you feel you need more practice with a type of problem, you can always do the example because they're worked out for you. And then notice here, practice. Practice 1. The other way you'll know that it's a practice problem is you'll see this green box over here in the margin. All of your practice problems will have green boxes in the margin. So see here further on down the page, there's practice 2. So you're going to stop the video right now and you are going to do practice 1. In my book, it happens to be on page 9. Okay, so you can check your answers in the back of the book. Before you have the answers to the practice to the problems at the end of the section, they'll have the book has the answers to all of the practice problems. So we're going to move on to classroom example 2. And here we just are asked to state whether the statement is true or false. So as long as the arrow is pointing to the smaller number, the statement is true. If the arrow happens to be pointing to the larger number, the statement would be false. So here we have 8 is less than 6. The arrow is not pointing to the smaller number. We would say that that is a false statement. Now here we have a combination sign, less than or equal to. Math has a lot of notation and often math expressions are very precise and efficient. So, greater than and equal to. Rather than writing two symbols meaning greater than or equal to, we would write that as a single symbol, greater than or equal to. So, look at it this way. it is including the greater than sign, right? And you know what? It is also including the equal sign. So both symbols are represented there, greater than or equal to. So let's go back to our classroom example 2. Is 21 less than or equal to 21? Well, since they're equal, we would say that is true. Now, if it had been 21 less than 21, that we would say false. But because of that little bar there representing equals, our original statement is true. How about the next one? Is 21 greater than or equal to 21? Yes, because of that little equal sign. Since 21 is equal to 21, that is a true statement. And how about, is 0 less than or equal to 5? Well, since the arrow is pointing to the smaller number, we would say that that is a true statement. So right now you're going to stop the video and you are going yourself to work on practice 2. Practice 2 is in your book right here. I'm showing you my copy of the book, so I have the answers in blue. Your book will not have the answers. All right, let's move on to classroom example 3. We're going to do a direct translation from English into mathematical statements or mathematical symbols. So when you do a translation, typically as words are written left to right, typically that's how the symbols are going to be written, left to right. Not always, you have to make sure you're writing the statement correctly. But here we would have the word 14 is going to become the number 14. The phrase is greater than or equal to would be represented by that symbol. And then the number 2 would be represented by the numeral 2. So here's an English statement, and here's a mathematical statement. How about the number 9 is not equal to? Not, the universal symbol for not is the arrow. I mean, we've all seen the do not cross. It's a person crossing with an arrow through it. Or do not smoke. It's a cigarette with an arrow through it. That's kind of the universal symbol for not. So that's how we would write 9 is not equal to. And there we have the numeral for 10. Both of those are true statements, by the way. Okay, so right now you're going to stop your video and work on practice 3 in your book.